years ago, when Gallifrey was young, the Doctor and the Time Lady had been terrible enemies. They had fought over all sorts of irrelevant things, but the Time Lady knew they could be great friends.
Welcome back to the Nerdy Grail, and we are finally here, part 1 of the 2-part finale of Doctor Who Season 2, Episode 7, Wish World. Now, I'm going to say this right from the get-go. There is spoilers for this episode, so if you want to click off this video, go and watch Wish World, and then come back and watch this review. I'd recommend doing that, because I'm going to be revealing who the new big bad is. Well, that is revealed at the end of this episode, and it's kind of what we sort of predicted, with all the theories that's gone around on the internet has come true. So if you've seen those, you're probably correct in your assumption. But I'm going to be explaining what happens in Wish World and what it's like as an episode overall, because it is a wild one, to be perfectly honest. It is a pretty good, solid story, in my personal opinion. I quite like it. So basically, the whole premise of Wish World is around May 24th. What is this mysterious date? What happens on May 24th? Why couldn't the Doctor get back to May 24th? And obviously it's a whole grand scheme of the Rani. So it starts off, we go back in time to Bavaria, where you see the Rani riding on a horse. And I remember that being like a leak or a rumoured thing online, and it came true, where the Rani goes to this guy who they were seeking some help for their newborn. The seventh son of the seventh son, all that is entangled within the past story here. And why is that relevant? Well, we see the Rani taking the brand newborn baby, kills all the rest of the family in some wild and wacky ways, to be perfectly honest, turning like the wife into violets, turning the children into ducks. The man gets turned into an owl, and she steals the baby and transports to the future. Cut to the future, where the world is weird. It gives me vibes, and I said this to my fiance, and we said it to each other. This gives us like WandaVision vibes, you know. So if you're an MCU fan, you know what I'm talking about, where they're living in like a weird fantasy world where obviously the real world is tucked away somewhere and everyone's sort of brainwashed into believing something. But if you're a Doctor Who fan, I'd say the best episode to compare this to is the Monk trilogy from season 10, especially the last part where the monks are controlling everything. And then there's a little resistance group of people who are trying to remember and solve everything. And that's what happens. The Doctor and Belinda are actually married with their daughter Poppy, who's one of the space babies. And they just live a normal life. Normal in this reality, which is run by Conrad and the two Ranis, Mrs. Flood's Rani and then the new Rani. But all through the episode, there's something going on, and little flickers of reality starts creeping back in, and they do this through the form of these cups which smash every time someone has a doubt or, you know, thinks that something's not quite right, which is a really interesting way to do it, to be perfectly honest. You know, and then the Doctor and Belinda have Mel as a neighbour who's also in on this as well, but eventually they get a call and knock on the door from Ruby Sunday, who is questioning things a lot more than other people. And we find out later that's because she has ties back in season 1 to 73 Yards, where she already saw a version of what this reality should be, and obviously that never came true. So she has bigger questions and bigger doubts. The Doctor does work at UNIT in this episode as well, but UNIT's changed into this weird like office block thing where Kate's still in charge. Colonel Ibrahim is there, who still fancies Kate. And it's quite funny how they get their little interactions. Susan Twist, or Susan Triad, is in this episode as well. I believe she's dressed in her outfit that she wore in The Devil's Cord, where she's like a caterer. But all through this episode, there's doubts, you know, when little things crop up and they question things that were from the original reality, a cup smashes. And everyone just sort of questions it. And high in the sky, in this big grand building structure castle, the two Ranis are plotting. They've used the Vindicator to use it as a bit of a lifeline, with Conrad also keeping everyone else at bay by telling stories about the Doctor. And there's the little baby that the Rani has stolen is in a little crib next to him. And as things start to get more and more revealed, when the Doctor finally expresses enough doubt, the Rani brings him in because it's finally time to unveil the core plan. And I must admit, the new person who plays the Rani is fantastic. And this is exactly what I wanted, and I had fears when I did my discussion on Mrs. Flood being the Rani, that I was hoping and praying that this new incarnation of the Rani wouldn't just be treated as another version of the Master, because I said that the Rani and the Master are two different people, and they definitely are, and Russell knocked it on the head here with the Rani. She's done really, really well. She even mentions to the Doctor, you know, all the other villains and evil people that you thought they just wanted to control the world or destroy the world. You know, I wanted to bring life, and that's who she is, because she's a scientist. She experiments and tries to make things better. You know, she created this world, this wish world that Conrad wanted, you know, but obviously she's got her own schemes at play here. Her interactions with her other incarnation, Mrs. Flood, as well, is really, really good. I do like Mrs. Flood. I'm glad that she wasn't fully submissive to her, you know, successor, but she did still feel a little bit like playing second fiddle to her to a degree, so there was elements of that. But obviously, as the Doctor and Belinda are brought in for suffering so many doubts, and obviously the Rani scheme is about to go into overdrive, the Rani reveals all to the Doctor, reveals her identity to him, you know, tries to get him to remember who she is. We get to see flashbacks to Kate O'Mara from Mark of the Rani and the time in the Rani, and that's beautiful, and it was beautiful to see. I love that so much. We also then get references to Gallifrey and all sorts. You know, we got the seal of Rassilon up in their little headquarters, trying to get the Doctor to remember who they are, and they reveal themselves. But the grand scheme is, there's the theme of doubt, and anyone who's a classic Whovian in particular knows that there's a villain in the classic series whose whole thing is all about will and doubt, and using supernovas, which is what the Vindicator is doing, is it's created this massive chain that's gonna, well, would explode to the power of multiple supernovas. And if you know anything about the classic series, you know that there is one villain, one Time Lord villain, that uses will, doubt, supernovas, all that, and is known for crossing realities. So this is the spoiler thing now. You've probably already figured it out, but obviously this is culminating in the return of Omega. We knew Omega was coming back. There was rumours about it for ages. We've wanted Omega to come back, and that is what we are getting. We are getting the return of Omega, because the Rani reveals that's what she's planning on doing. We actually get to hear a soundbite from Stephen Thorne, who plays Omega in The Three Doctors. We get to see little clips and bits and pieces, which is brilliant, and I love it. But we don't actually get to see Omega, so obviously they're saving that for the next episode, which I know is an extended episode, The Reality War. So hopefully we do get to see that. So that would be great. So I'm glad that we're getting Omega back, but I think it is a bold move that we got the Rani, Omega, and Susan does make a brief little appearance on a TV screen, so I'm wondering if we're going to get more Susan and whether we'll see her. So quite a bold move, doing a lot of the big asks in the same episode. You know, you need to make sure you get them right, though, Russell. I'm just saying that now for the next episode. One thing I would say I'm a little bit disappointed about, though, but we might get that in the second part, is that Mel and the Rani never interact with each other. And I said that also in my discussion video on Mrs. Flood's The Rani. You know, Mel fought the Rani and Time and the Rani, and it was brilliant to see those two play off of each other. So I'm kind of gutted we didn't get that in this episode, but I'm hoping they're saving that for the next episode. But yeah, I quite liked Wishworld, and the episode ends with the Doctor falling down under the earth, you know, supposedly going to this like hell reality where Omega's being kept. We do see briefly as well on the TV screen the return of Rogue, who is in that dimension. So I'm anticipating Rogue is going to be in the finale as well. So we're going to have a lot of characters in the finale. But yeah, I thought overall Wishworld was a pretty decent story, you know, and like I said, I'd compare it to the Monk trilogy, you know, where it's all about this separate reality, where then you've got a group of people, resistance group, which there's a resistance group in this as well, where Ruby's doing that, and then you've got the return of Shirley, who runs this little group of people who are sharing lots of doubts because they've been thrown away because they're people with disabilities, or, you know, like people who use sign language or are deaf, that sort of thing, which is a really sweet and touching moment to use. And I quite like the conversation that Ruby and Shirley had. But yeah, so there's just so much in this episode. I'm going to need to really do a deep dive into this at some point, especially when the actual finale episode happens. But what would I give Wishworld out of 10? I would say for me, Wishworld, I did really enjoy it, and I loved how the Rani was. So for me, I'm actually going to say that so far, because I like all this mind-bending reality thing, I'm actually going to give Wishworld an 8.5 out of 10, making it my favourite episode of Series 2 so far. But I hope you did enjoy this video, because this is my review now on Wishworld. Like it by giving it a thumbs up and comment down below your thoughts on Wishworld. And subscribe if you are new. But for now, this is the Nerdy Grail signing off. I hope you've had an amazing day, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye for now, everyone.